Okay, good afternoon and welcome everyone. We have a good number of you on the webinar and probably just need a few more seconds for people to join. The number's rapidly going up. Welcome to this Wednesday, and today we're going to be looking at mastering DORA, so certified training for DORA compliance. I'm the head of training, Andy Johnston, and with me today we have Alan Calder. So hello, Alan, and welcome. So just kind of a short bit about me. I'm the head of training. I look after training for IT governance across a number of regions, as you can see there, and across a number of topics, all kind of closely related to or directly related to information security, cybersecurity, data protection, you name it, and DORA more recently. So Alan, I'll just introduce you. Alan is our founder and chairman of IT governance. Welcome, Alan.
Hi there.
And Alan, if you want to kind of take it from here and take it through the next couple of slides,
Sure.
I'll just hand over.
So I've been in and around the world of cybersecurity for about 25 years now. I've written a number of books on ISO 27001, on GDPR, on cybersecurity. I've done work with a number of companies around the world, and of course I set up IT governance as a business probably about 20 years or so ago. And IT governance now, pushing 200 employees, is a IT governance risk and compliance specialist. We have a comprehensive ISO 27001 offering. We have a comprehensive GDPR offering. We have some 12,000 clients across multiple sectors, across all the continents. And we now have a comprehensive DORA offering. And a comprehensive DORA offering is pretty important because the reality is that there is now less than 14 months before the EU financial sector has to be compliant. We've got lots of experience across all of those products and services with helping clients get themselves to the point of compliance. We've helped some 1,300 organizations over the years with ISO 27001, which is pretty well the basis for most approaches to cyber and information security. We've run some 1,600 cybersecurity projects, 7,000 Cyber Essential certifications. We've trained some 25,000 or 30,000 people over the last few years across the broad range of training qualifications that Andy mentioned. And our IT governance risk and compliance software is used by more and more organizations.
Thank you, Alan.
The agenda, Andy, you're going to talk through, I think.
Yes, just touch on it briefly. So today we kind of expect you to know quite a bit about DORA. So we won't be trying to explain in too much depth what DORA is, etc. But we will touch on why it's needed, how it's regulated, and the cost of compliance and non-compliance. And throughout, obviously, is the theme of how certified training can play a part in the objective of being compliant. So we'll end on an overview of our DORA portfolio and some very structured pathways and some specific promos for those who have attended the webinar to get you going. All right, Alan, back to you. Go on to the next one. Okay, so we've got a poll here to start us off. So just bear with me while I start this poll. Now you should see it now. And we have a good number of you on here, so good, thank you. So where do you fit? Regulated entity, ICT supplier or consultant? And if you can't find a category in there, then obviously drop a message in. Okay, just give you another few seconds. There's just a couple of you left to vote. All right, well done. So just for everyone's benefit, and a few more of you voting, thank you. Around 32% regulated entity operating in the EU, 22% from the ICT supply chain, and 45% consultant into IT firms or sectors. Thank you for that. That's very interesting. And kind of now moving into another one. I'll just pull this up very quickly. This just help us frame some of the discussion when we get into it. So where do you work? So we have the results of the initial one. Where do you work? UK, EU, outside, or across all regions? Thank you. You're all very quick on this one. Well done. So just around 40% in the UK, 20% in the EU, and 34% across multi-regions. Very useful to know. Thank you. So what is DORA and why is it needed, Alan?
So DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act, is a European act. We think it has global implications in much the same way that GDPR set the stage for privacy regulation in the EU and set the stage, therefore, for privacy regulation increasingly across the rest of the world. We think the DORA will do much the same to cyber resilience in the financial sector. And we think that because, of course, the EU is a very substantial market in the world. It is a market with which many other financial sectors compete. And as the EU shifts to being a market which is genuinely resilient, its financial sector becomes resilient, so other financial markets are going to need to compete. And we think, therefore, we will see DORA and DORA-like regulations spreading across the world. Of course, there are many entities not fully based in the EU who have head offices or support offices outside the EU and providing services inside the EU. And while you'd be licensed inside the EU, the need to comply with DORA could impact on the whole of your organization, depending on how the organization is put together. So DORA is a critical step forward. And it's an interesting step because what it essentially is doing is saying that all of the things that once upon a time were good practice now are a regulatory requirement. So when you look at the 5 pillars of DORA, and in a minute the slide will advance, there we go, the reality that DORA is focusing on dealing with systemic risk. And DORA focuses on governance, risk management, and compliance. And that's important because, frankly, if focusing on technology was the way to deal with cybercrime wouldn't be happening anymore. It would be sorted. But it isn't. Cybercrime continues to be a bigger and bigger issue year in and year out, and cyber criminals get more and more sophisticated. They have more and more useful technologies that they can deploy. And of course, the financial sector is interesting because that's where the money is. So the need for financial sector organizations to deal not simply with technology, but with all of the conduct risk issues, all of the governance, risk management, compliance issues has shifted from being this is a good practice to being something with very specific legal requirements. And of course, as the EU moves to make those kind of regulations, what it's really saying to financial entities is that where you've had 1 or 2 people who specialize in cybersecurity, you now need to have a lot of people inside the organization with more than just a passing awareness or understanding of what you've got to do around cybersecurity. So while concentration risk in the ICT supply chain are all issues that short sector entities need to deal with, their bigger issue is dealing with how to turn best practice into something which meets some very specific regulatory requirements. So what are called the 5 pillars of DORA, the risk management, that's fundamentally around governance, risk management, and compliance. It's identifying where your risks are. It's having this having a risk appetite determined by the board and then applied through the organization, incident management, dealing with cybersecurity incidents in a consistent way, which ensures that they are controlled, because DORA recognizes what most professionals recognize, which is that one line of defense is never going to be enough. You need multiple lines of cyber defense involving skills, competence, as well as technology, and you need to make sure it works. So testing resilience is therefore the third pillar of DORA. The fourth pillar is spreading out from your own entity, your own organization, across the full life cycle of critical suppliers, the suppliers on whom you depend for any particular element of the service that you're giving to your customers. And I think those are the four most important elements of DORA. The fifth, information intelligence sharing, is largely optional, although the requirements are very specific about the ways in which you can go on doing that so as not to breach requirements around client confidentiality, not to move into situations which might begin to look monopolistic. But it's really the first four, which is where all of the key components of entity and sectoral resilience sit. And the requirements are specific. So this is not an area where you can just simply turn to an IT team and say, make sure we're DORA compliant, buy some hardware and software, and it will deliver it for it, because it won't. Yes, the five pillars build on existing skills and competences. They build on existing international standards and ISO 27001, ISO 22301. Those will be even more useful as badges in future to demonstrate that you have done appropriate things around cybersecurity. But you will need to do more than what those standards are setting out, because you'll need to comply with the letter of DORA, not just simply the best practice that's enshrined in those standards. The skills and competences that come with all the range of qualifications that you might currently have, those will continue to be useful, but you'll need to layer on top of that a specific understanding of what DORA requires. In other words, if you're going to be an auditor of DORA compliance in the supply chain, having a CISA qualification, a Certified Information Systems Audit qualification, is a good starting point, but it's not enough, because you're not just auditing cybersecurity, you're auditing cybersecurity in a specific DORA requirement environment, and you need to make sure that your are complying with DORA's specific requirements. So the five pillars of DORA build, yes, on existing standards. Yes, they are. There's not a lot that in principle is new, but in detail, there is an awful lot that organizations have to do. And if you don't get that message, if you don't understand that this is about competence, about the ability of individuals, of boards, of senior managers to determine what risk they're prepared to take, and managing risk in a way that ensures their organization is resilient, actually means that you face some potentially significant costs that come from non-compliance. Yes, compliance has costs. There's no doubt that you're going to need to spend money on your compliance program, and you can't sadly go out and hire a bunch of people who will come along and be competent to do what you need them to do. There is already a workforce gap of nearly 3 million people. There is a huge workforce gap of DORA competent people. So you're going to need to get a number of people inside your organization to understand what it is specifically that DORA requires you to do. And it's not just about implementation, because DORA is about resilience, about ongoing compliance. And that means internal audits, it means audit of suppliers and audits across your supply chain. It means managing emerging risks, and cyber criminals are going to go on being the source of new risks. That threat horizon is crowded. The attack surface is very porous and very large. So understanding how to manage, how to implement, how to manage risk, how to audit in that environment means that you need to continue developing DORA-specific skills. Cost something. Nothing like what it will cost to be non-compliant. Because your non-compliant costs are going to be a combination of the cost of the breach itself, and whether it's a ransomware or any other breach, the reality is that they're expensive to deal with. And I can see a time coming where, as regulation increasingly bites, both cyber insurers and governments ban the paying of ransoms because it does only encourage them. So the cost of recovery gets to be more and more expensive. And then on top of that, you face fines for non-compliance, because it's very difficult to pretend that you were compliant with DORA once you've had a breach and you're unable to. You're going to be investigated very quickly. There's reasonable prospect you don't even report the breach in the way that you're supposed to, and then you're facing a regulatory investigation and a set of potentially substantial fines on top of that. Because again, in the financial sector, the generation of fines tends to be fairly significant. So this is a framework in which, as an organization, you need to be thinking about how do you build competence. And as I'm talking, I'm sure that you're increasingly going, what about this and how about that? And ladies and gentlemen, the 30 or 35 minutes that we're going to talk then leads into a Q&A session, and very happy for any questions you've got to answer. You will have in your GoToWebinar panel a questions tab. If you look down the lot there, you'll see something called questions. If you click it open, you can type questions into it. When we come to the Q&A session, what we'll do is we'll pick up any questions you've got. We'll share the question with you, and then Andy or I will answer it to the best of our ability. But I don't want you to feel that you can't ask questions. You can. Please go ahead and do that. So, cost of compliance and non-compliance likely to be very different. So, worthwhile thinking about how you address that. You could think about, you go further than that, and you could think about compliance as something where there is a cost-benefit ratio, and there is a set of rewards that you get, not simply in terms of managing cost, in terms of legal simplicity, in terms of managing risk exposure, but reputational benefit, strategic benefit from being able to demonstrate that you are a financially resilient, cyber secure, resilient organization, as distinct from what happens if you don't seek to be compliant. In a sense, not compliant, you're simply an organization where you're looking at a cost ratio. There's a cost of non-compliance, there are no benefits, and non-compliance has spin-off costs in a whole bunch of different ways. So you want to avoid non-compliance. It's financial sector, we were kind of used to the idea that compliance is a major driver. It becomes a bigger driver. It's a core part of the organization growing and developing as we move forward. So with that in mind, the kind of how does regulation work? Well, it works exactly the way it does at the moment. So the existing European supervisory authorities have been given by DORA the power to deal with DORA enforcement. They are identified as competent authorities under DORA. They will regulate, investigate, supervise, fine, do whatever they think is necessary to ensure DORA is effectively implemented. So all of their powers that they currently have around fining, all of the judicial environment within which they do that, that still continues to apply. And bear in mind that third-party ICT suppliers who are supplying the financial sector are themselves also within scope for DORA. So if you are and intend to continue being a third-party supplier to the financial sector, you need to get yourself compliant as an entity, not just simply as a supplier to the financial sector. It's a moving target. There will be new standards emerging. DORA very specifically recognizes that there may be further technical standards, there may be classification requirements coming up. So you need to pay attention to how you're going to evidence compliance in a changing environment. And the kind of reality for most organizations is that points at platforms, at compliance platforms where all of your compliance requirements are fed into it and updated in a way that enables you to get on top of and stay on top of compliance. But the key thing is that you need to ensure that is part of the approach inside the organization. You can't have DORA being simply the basic way in which a few people operate. DORA is saying effectively the baseline around cyber resilience has to be something everybody is involved in. So if you're thinking about how do we go about implementing this, well, the board senior management has a role to play. Critical functions across the entity have roles to play. All staff have a role to play. Staff need to be specifically trained not only on money laundering and on anti-bribery and so on, anti-modern slavery, but also on their role in terms of the digital resilience of the organization. So you need to build an organization-wide training plan which ensures that the way you deal with cybersecurity, audit, risk management, incident management is not only process in line with DORA's requirements, but also recognizes how risk appetite and risk management plays out across the organization, and recognizes that everybody inside the organization has a contribution to make to the resilience of the organization itself. So DORA is, frankly, like all resilience approaches, is a cross-organization requirement, and it's important to approach it like that.
Thank you, Alan. Just into coming over to me, and before I kind of take over, I'm just going to run our last poll of the session, but if you can fill this out, I'm thinking you can see that now. So in terms of your entity, are you nearly DORA ready? And I've had some interesting chats recently over LinkedIn with maybe some of you on the call, but we're at various places, and the survey is telling us 6% have a DORA framework in place, which is really good. 3% nearly there, but 41% still in planning. 34% say not yet, and 17% organizations not affected. Okay, that's good. So thank you for that. And Alan, thank you for the overview of DORA. Being a non-technical individual and lacking the skills you have, I find it very, very informative. So in terms of who and how the certified training can help, within all of your organizations, there'll be a range of roles who can all participate in achieving DORA compliance. And all we're trying to do here is really show that, if you can train up your auditors, get them doing some gap analyses, for example, get them doing some audits, and then train up your implementation team, timing dependent on what you feel the risk and the rollout plan should be. You should come out with a range of actions and items to take forward within your organizations. And then it's all about maintaining it with your management teams or your compliance officers. And Alan, obviously correct me if I get any of this wrong as I go along. So any processes you implement, any changes you make, you want to be tracking they're adhered to. You want to be auditing against those to ensure that they are established. And you do want to upskill internally as far as you can. There is a cyber skills shortage as it is, let alone a shortage on DORA knowledge and DORA skills. So the certified training courses are built to satisfy the needs throughout this kind of cycle, including the accountable directors. So we'll talk about the products and the audiences they're aimed at and the benefits they'll give them. But essentially, you're going to need to train and evidence the training more and more so, especially for the kind of governance aspect. And included in that are all staff training and all staff awareness on DORA. So we essentially have or recommend training for all roles, essentially for everyone. So C-level, all the way through your project management teams, cyber infosec teams, your architects, ops, your audit teams, and your compliance, procurement in particular, and your commercial and product teams. So everyone essentially will need some form of training. And when you work through the supply chain, it's not just the first stage supply chain, it's everyone who feeds into them as well. So what we have here at the base level is a foundation level training, which essentially anyone assigned DORA tasks, we recommend they take this minimum 1 day a certified training course. This is a prerequisite then for our practitioner, lead audit, and compliance officer courses. Each of those courses achieves different things for different roles, so they're very role specific. But the foundation is the baseline for that. And on the backdrop of all of that, we recommend all staff take DORA awareness training. And obviously, for C-level, C-suite individuals, we have our DORA risk director training, which is essential to evidence kind of your knowledge on DORA, and I'm sure you've got a good baseline already, but having a certified certificate helps you evidence that. So training with IT governance, we train in a number of ways. We train on a instructor-led basis, so this can be our public schedule, which you'll see on our website. These can be in venue or live online. We're running our first set in London next week, actually. And then we also have self-paced delivery. So with all of the DORA trainings we're going to showcase to you, self-paced options will be available. And we then also do blended learning formats, which are instead of learning in a 1 day or 4 day format, you can spread the learning out over time and out of hours, for example. And we have a range of bespoke and in-house solutions. So depending on how many people you're training, we can provide a solution that meets each individual's needs and your team's training needs. So pathway-wise, and you'll have got the gist of it on an earlier slide, but the DORA Foundation really is there for most people impacted by DORA. You will then progress into specialist areas such as our DORA practitioner product, DORA lead auditor, and DORA compliance officer. And you can see next to them the typical roles that would apply to each of those trainings. So for your practitioner, those who are generally looking after cybersecurity, your CISOs, for example, that would apply mostly to them. And they can then kick on and do the risk director training. The lead auditor training, obviously targeted at your auditors, and probably one of the first set of trainings you should consider. And for those who have trained with us before, there is a way of taking that training in a shorter amount of time, but that would require too much explanation for this presentation. And obviously compliance officer then, your usual compliance roles. Now for any of those products where the foundation is a prerequisite, IT governance has combination courses to make that more cost effective. So you'll see at the bottom there, they're the 3 core recommended packages we suggest you look at. The foundation is required to get the certificate in any of those 3 courses, the practitioner, lead auditor, and compliance officer course. So you may as well get it in the combi. Now, in terms of your kind of roadmap and where you are in your kind of journey, some of you are there, so congratulations. Some of you are in planning, and some of you are kind of not really going yet. So that's fine. Training really is essential for part of the plan going forward. Training the internal auditors, your implementation team, your BAU team, especially your exec team. These are all important considerations. Now, whatever size of entity, organization you have, we would be able to work with you on any kind of group bookings, in-house sessions if you would prefer that, any bespoke content, and we would also have and would recommend you pull through solutions for your supply chain. So awareness sessions for your supply chain to bring through the importance of DORA. Obviously, you may push on the requirement for them to invest in their own development thereon, but making them aware of what they need to do to work with you would be an important and logical step. Now, in terms of next course dates or launch course dates, we have a number of courses in London, and we have a range of courses live online as well. So you can see there, we are launching our DORA Foundation, which will be led by Alan himself on the 11th of December. I have a little promotion for you at the end of this webinar, where you will get a substantive discount, either you or someone in your organization as appropriate. And obviously attending with Alan would be something that doesn't happen often. So I would suggest it if you're thinking of doing the training. DORA practitioner will follow in January, lead auditor as well, and DORA compliance officer will follow around May time, maybe earlier, and the risk director again also around May time. In-house wise, depending on your needs, we can potentially look at dates to suit your needs. So if you do have training requirements, we would work with you on that. So I'm just going to pause. It's telling me to pause, but have we got any questions so far? It's been...
We have. We
Good.
have. And ladies and gentlemen, a reminder in the questions panel in your GoToWebinar app, you can type in questions. Many of you have found that and have done so. And I'll share the questions out, and Andy, between us, we'll answer them. The one that's come up a couple of times is, will the slides be available? Yes, they'll be available to everybody who signed up on the webinar. They'll go out within about 48 hours of the webinar itself, and you'll have access to the content and the recording. So that's the kind of general question. So where can we find a list of the control requirements we need to meet for DORA? Good question. The European Commission website is the answer. If you go onto it and look for DORA, and you can download a copy of DORA itself. It's there in all of the official languages of the European Union, and that's what you've got to do. The simple answer is that what DORA says is you've got to work out what your risks are, and you've got to select and put in place appropriate controls. It doesn't tell you exactly what those controls are, but it does talk you through at a fairly what the categories of controls are. And if you find it useful, do also sign on to the series of webinars we're doing, of which this is one, which is covering DORA generally. So while we're focusing here on training, there's a series of webinars running. You can log on to them on our website in any one of the 3 regions in which we operate, and we'll cover each of those major areas. So that's the first question. Second question is, would financial firms based in the UK that do not service the EU be in scope for DORA? No. You're not. DORA is a European act. It applies to financial entities that have licenses to deliver financial services in the European Union. If you're a UK company and you have a subsidiary or a branch in the EU, that subsidiary or branch will be within scope. If that means that it's very dependent on what you do in the UK, then the UK will find itself by extension effectively within scope. But it's driven by the licensing. Hi, you have spoken about the risk of non-compliance with DORA. You mentioned that cyber risk is one of the primary risks. What about when services go down due to bad business continuity and business resilience planning? We saw HSBC online application go down due to an internal change. Does DORA apply here? Yes, is the answer. That digital operational resilience bit is exactly what it's about. So The governance, risk management, and compliance, the risk planning includes planning for what happens when services go down. It includes working out in your risk response how to make sure that services are recovered within a minimum acceptable time to a minimum level of performance. All of that, that's kind of ISO 22301, which is the international best practice standard for business continuity, has a lot of detail about. DORA says you've got to do it. So business continuity, incident response, testing of those plans, that's all now a legal requirement, not just a good idea. When do you have to be compliant by? 17th of January 2025 is the answer. So you have just about 13 and a half months to get there. And in lots of parts of the world, Christmas comes along and gets in the way. How does DORA, yes, how does DORA impact insurance? I'm not sure if that's a question about if you are an insurance insurer selling insurance, or whether it's a question of your insurance cover. If you are selling insurance or you're an insurer, you're a financial sector company, you are within scope for DORA. If you are providing insurance to financial sector companies, I imagine you will be requiring evidence of their DORA compliance before you extend your cyber cover, because why wouldn't you? Is there a comparison between ISO 27001 and DORA? Shall I go on, Andy, or do you feel like having a go at some of them?
Oh, you want to test me on, is there a comparison between 27001 and DORA? Thank you, Alan.
So the answer is no, because ISO 27001 is a best practice standard, and ISO 27001 sets out how you should go about building a management system that links a senior management identified set of risks with a set of controls which you can monitor. What DORA does effectively is say, go away and put ISO 27001 in place, and then do a bunch of things on top of that that will give you very specific compliance with ISO, with DORA, which is why I said earlier on, if you are an ISO 27001 lead implementer or lead auditor, that's a good starting point. If you're an ISO 22301 lead business continuity implementer, good starting point, but not enough, because you need to specifically comply with what DORA says. And there are a number of things you need to be able to evidence and demonstrate around compliance. So you need to add on top of that DORA specific training.
Right, let me take a couple of these then, Alan, because I think some of these now come into my ability to answer them. Let's see, can certified 27001 lead implementer apply for DORA training? Absolutely, we recommend you do so. It does depend on a few other things, so I just suggest you get in touch with us afterwards. But choosing the right DORA course for you is important. Can we send details of self-paced training? Absolutely, we will. We'll do that. Any product you see or have seen in this presentation and webinar will be available as a self-paced product for you. But I see you've left some details, so I'll get in touch with you directly. The accreditation body for the courses is IBIT-GQ, which is an international body specializing in information security, data protection, cybersecurity. So very good accreditation for the courses. They all come with CPD points. So for those of you maintaining memberships with the likes of Osaka, ISC Squared, or any other ones, you will also accrue some handy CPD points to maintain your membership. Is it right that working as an ICT provider would need to be aware and ready for DORA, but not compliant with its requirements? More one for you, Alan.
So the answer is it depends. If you're just an ICT service provider and you're only doing minor things, then you need to be ready. You will certainly need to be able to demonstrate that you have, as a minimum, adequate levels of cybersecurity and GDPR compliance in place. DORA specifically requires all financial entities to satisfy themselves that all of their third-party ICT providers meet a minimum satisfactory level of security and privacy compliance. If you are a critical supplier, which broadly means somebody providing a service to a financial sector company on which they depend for one of the services, one of their regulated services, then you are within scope of DORA and you too will have to comply. DORA does not say that ICT service providers who fall into that category have some other compliance route. You are just within scope for compliance. So all of the things which a financial sector company has to do, you too have to do. You have to have a board set risk appetite. You have to determine what appropriate risk management controls are. That has to flow through your risk treatment plan, your business continuity planning, your resilience testing, your penetration testing, exactly as for any financial services entity. You have the added challenge that it's a requirement of DORA that all of your clients recontract with you in a way that enables them, if something goes wrong with your service, to extract them from it without any real problem. So the penalties as a provider for not being compliant have that third dimension, that you can almost immediately lose a contract because DORA requires that to be written into contractual terms. So my general advice to ICT service providers operating in the sector is, don't think of this as something where you can maybe get away with just being aware of it. You kind of need to be at least as compliant as financial sector organizations, either because you have to or because you want to provide them with services.
Thank you, Alan. Not simple, is it? Okay, so I'm going to just move on. We have a few more questions. One in particular on how to sign up for online DORA training. I like that question. So this one doesn't directly answer this because this is in venue training, but there are some offers here for you. So we will send out how you can book your training in follow-up emails, and that's how you will be able to sign up. You can also just go to our website, whatever region you're in, and you should see appropriate courses there. If you want some help, obviously, give us a nudge and we'll chat to you now. There's an exclusive offer for all of you here. If you can make it to London on the 11th of December, Alan will be there. He'll be buying you lunch. He buys everyone lunch every week. He doesn't know that, but yeah, he does. You get 50% off. Now, in order to book it, you're going to need to get in touch with my team and they'll help you through that process. In terms of other trainings, for those of you who have teams you're considering upskilling, here's a typical example of having around 7 people take training, come out with 13 certifications. If you're wanting a solution for your teams, again, you'll be able to get in touch with us. There'll be a link on our follow-up emails and collateral we send you. We'll pull a solution together for you, which will essentially give you some substantive discounts based on the fact you're buying for a multi purchase element. So I do believe we've run out of time. Just bang on. So apologies if we haven't got to your question, but as we are out of time, I'd like to thank you for your attendance and your participation through the questions. And Alan, thank you ever so much for lending us your technical expertise. I wish you a lovely rest of the day, everyone.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.